you're sitting in the final interview. The hiring manager leans forward and asks, "What are your salary expectations?" Your stomach tightens. You've been here before, and you've lost this game before. But here's what's different now. In 2026, the rules have fundamentally changed, and most people still don't know it. Today I'm giving you the cheat code for using pay transparency laws to negotiate up to $15,000 more. Let's get into it. 50% of Americans now live in pay transparency jurisdictions. That's not a prediction, that's the reality as of 2026. 16 states have enacted pay transparency laws, dozens of cities too, and companies are getting fined thousands, sometimes tens of thousands per violation. This isn't just about fairness. This is about information asymmetry, and for the first time, the advantage is shifting to you. Here's what changed. For decades, salary negotiations were a poker game where only the employer could see the cards. You'd walk in blind, guess a number, and hope you didn't lowball yourself. The company knew exactly what the role paid. They knew what your predecessor made. They knew the budget ceiling. You knew nothing. That dynamic created a $5,000 to $10,000 gap. People who negotiated earned that much more per year than those who accepted first offers. But negotiating blind? That was nearly impossible. Pay transparency laws flipped the table. Now, in covered jurisdictions, employers must post salary ranges on job listings. Before you even apply, you can see the floor and the ceiling. According to Jackson Lewis Legal Analysis, 50% of the U.S. population now lives in jurisdictions where pay transparency is legally required. Paycor's state-by-state analysis shows 16 states have enacted these laws, with at least a dozen more plus multiple cities requiring disclosure by 2027. The big ones? Colorado, California, Washington, New York. But the list is growing fast. Massachusetts and New Jersey started active enforcement this year. Now here's where it gets tactical. These laws don't just exist, they're being enforced. Companies are facing real penalties for non-compliance. According to Hunton Legal Analysis, states like Colorado, Washington, and New York have enforced penalties ranging from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars per posting. California just got even stricter. As of January 2026, they redefined pay scale to require what they call a good faith estimate, what the employer reasonably expects to pay. That means no more ridiculous ranges like $80,000 to $200,000. California said, be specific or face consequences. So what does this mean for you practically? It means you can walk into a negotiation armed with information that used to be completely hidden. Here's the first move. Before any interview, you might want to search for that exact job posting in a pay transparency state, even if you don't live there. Companies often post the same role in multiple states. Colorado, California, New York, Washington, search there. The salary range follows the role, not your location. And here's a detail most people miss. Jackson Lewis employer guidance confirms these transparency requirements often extend to internal opportunities, promotions, transfers, lateral moves. That means if you're going for an internal promotion, you can ask, what's the external posting salary range for this role? It's a powerful question. Consider asking directly, I'd like to understand how this promotion aligns with what you pay an external candidate. That question reframes the entire conversation. Now let's talk strategy. You've got the salary range. The posting says 120 to 150. What do you do with that information? Most people make a critical mistake here. They target the midpoint, 120 to 150. They ask for 135. That's leaving money on the table. Davern's salary analysis explains it clearly. With clear guidelines for salary ranges, hiring managers know exactly what limits they need to stick to. The ceiling isn't a fantasy number, it's approved budget. Someone, maybe the director, maybe the VP, signed off on that maximum. Your job is to justify reaching it. Here's your anchor strategy. Consider targeting the 75th percentile. If the range is 120 to 150, you might aim for around 143. When you state your number, frame it this way. Based on the posted range in my experience, I'm targeting 143. Specific. Confident. Anchored. Why specific? Because of anchoring bias. Research shows the first number stated in a negotiation shifts the final outcome by 15 to 25% toward that anchor. When you say 143, the entire conversation orbits that number. Every counter, every compromise pulls toward it like gravity. When you ask, what's the range, instead, you hand them the anchor. And their anchor is always lower than yours would have been. Try this question. What would it take to come in at the top of the posted range? It forces them to show you their criteria instead of guessing. Maybe they say 5 years of management experience or enterprise sales background. Now you know exactly what to emphasize. No more guessing what they value. Candor IQ's compensation research confirms the shift. Employees now expect fair pay relative to colleagues and industry standards, increasing pressure on employers to justify decisions. The power dynamic is shifting. For the first time, you can ask why with real data behind you. Why is this offer below the posted range? Why is this less than you'd pay externally? And here's something most people don't realize. If a company offers you below their posted range, that's not just insulting. In many states, it's a compliance violation. Consider documenting if this happens. Screenshot the posting. Note the date and the offer. You may not need to use it, but having it changes the power balance. Let me tell you about Priya. She'd been in her role 18 months. Glowing reviews. Salary hadn't moved. She decided to use these exact strategies. She found the external posting for a similar role in Colorado, range 125 to 150. She was making 118. She anchored at 145. Her company countered at 138. She walked out at 141. At $23,000 raise. Without changing jobs. Resume Hobbs analysis found employees who negotiate earn an average of $5,000 to $10,000 more per year than those who accept first offers. Priya beat that average. Now what if you don't live in a pay transparency state? What if your state hasn't caught up yet? You're not out of options. Many companies operate nationally. They post the same role in multiple states. Even if you're in Texas or Florida, search for that exact job title plus Colorado or New York. The salary range isn't a secret once it's posted somewhere. Use that information, regardless of where you sit. Information is leverage. But let's address the elephant in the room. Some companies game these laws. They post absurdly wide ranges to technically comply while revealing nothing useful. You've seen these postings, $80,000 to $200,000. That's a $120,000 gap. It tells you almost nothing. California recognized this problem. Their new good faith estimate requirement targets exactly this abuse. Other states are watching and will likely follow. If you see an absurd range, consider it a red flag. Either the company is trying to avoid transparency or they genuinely don't know what they're willing to pay. Neither is a good sign. Let's talk about what else to look for. When researching a company, check their historical postings. Sites archive old listings. Have their ranges stayed consistent? If a company posted the same role 3 months ago at a higher range, that's intelligence. It might mean budget cuts, or it might mean negotiation room if you highlight the discrepancy. Here's another angle. Pay transparency isn't just about job postings. It's changing how companies think about compensation internally. Candor IQ reports that employers now face pressure to conduct frequent pay audits. They're comparing internal salaries against market data more often than ever. This creates an opportunity. You might frame your request around market alignment. I want to make sure my compensation aligns with the market data your team is tracking. You're not asking for special treatment. You're asking to be paid what the market bears. And you're signaling that you know they have the data to validate that. Let me give you one more scenario. You've done everything right. You anchored high. You asked the right questions. And then? They come back lower than you expected. Don't panic. The negotiation isn't over. In fact, in pay transparency jurisdictions, their lowball might actually be your leverage. Consider responding. I noticed the posted range goes up to X. Help me understand what's preventing us from reaching that number given my qualifications. That's not a complaint. It's a legitimate question backed by publicly available information, and it forces them to articulate their decision, often revealing paths to close the gap. Sometimes they'll reveal it's about title level or specific certifications. Sometimes they'll admit budget constraints that might change next quarter. Either way, you're learning. All right, let's rapid fire through the cheat codes from today's episode. These are the moves that could put $15,000 in your pocket. 1. Before any interview, search for the role in Colorado, California, New York, or Washington. Find the range even if you're somewhere else. 2. Anchor at the 75th percentile. If the range is 120 to 150, target 143. Specific beats vague. 3. Ask what would it take to reach the top of the range. Make them show their cards instead of guessing what they value. 4. For internal moves, ask how your promotion compares to external hires. Request the external postings range, it's your leverage. 5. Document everything. If they offer below the posted range, screenshot the posting and note the discrepancy. Information is leverage, even if you never use it. If you found this useful, hit subscribe. We release these cheat codes regularly, and the more you know about the unwritten rules, the faster you can use them. Pay transparency isn't a trend, it's the new reality. 50% of Americans are already covered, and that number is only going up. For the first time, you can walk into a negotiation knowing the ceiling. The question is whether you'll settle for the floor or aim higher. That's your cheat code for the week. Now go use it.